I try to keep my intro short and sweet, and I don't try to go on too much, especially with longer videos like this. You know, it's not like you need my life story. Biographical movies, while they're not technically a full-fledged genre, they are still one of the most popular forms of storytelling within film. And why wouldn't they be? Seeing a film centered around the life of someone famous, whether it be a musician, an actor, or some other public official with a huge amount of influence, can be really moving. Seeing just how much of an impact they had on culture or other people's lives can be inspiring, and getting a look at how they were outside of the public eye can make them feel much more relatable. Now, not all of them are like that. There are some biographies of some less than savory figures that don't necessarily glorify their lives, but most of these films are like that. There's a formula to most of them. We see a glimpse of their early lives, their rise to stardom, but they also have some major flaws and it causes them to fail and they have to fight through it, and then they rise back up to do something truly inspirational. Despite many of them following the same formula, there are so many of them that have gone on to be considered the greatest movies of all time, and we still get plenty of them to this day. The latest of which is Disney's Hamilton, which is really just a recording of a stage musical. But still, it is a biography of Alexander Hamilton, and the play is very popular, so that makes this pretty noteworthy. So with the release of Hamilton, now's a good time to look back at 10 of the best biographical movies of all time. So before I begin, I just want to make it clear, there are a lot of these movies, and I mean a lot. I'm going to end up leaving a ton of great movies off. There are plenty I'd love to talk about, but we'd just be here all day. At some point, I'll probably do a longer video talking about more of these. But if you do have a favorite that I left off this list, let me know in the comments. But let's jump right into it. The top 10 best biographical movies of all time. Number 10. Lawrence of Arabia. When it comes to the greatest historical epics, this is usually at the top of the list. And there's a good reason why. This movie is riveting from beginning to end. With its excellent cinematography, beautiful landscapes, and well-choreographed moments of action, there's rarely a dull moment, even if it is 4 hours. Yeah, that's right, 4 hours. And you thought Lord of the Rings was long. I mean, the director's cut of all those movies has this beat. But, yeah. Anyway, this was made when long historical epics were huge, and they'd be treated like a big night out at the theater. There'd be things like overtures and intermissions, so it was a time investment, but certainly worth it. Peter O'Toole does a great job as T.E. Lawrence, and the supporting cast is also fantastic, including Alec Guinness, Anthony Quinn, and Omar Sharif. Plus, the musical score is legendary and one of the best in movie history. Considered by many as one of the greatest films of all time, this is certainly worthy of that distinction. Number 9. Braveheart. The historical epic comes to the 1990s. In a way, this captures the feel of the 1960s films like Lawrence of Arabia that I mentioned earlier, being another grand, sweeping epic, minus elements like intermissions, but in its place, plenty of violence. A whole lot of violence, actually. This film is pretty brutal at times. I mean, they're very well shot action scenes, probably some of the best filmed action scenes in any sort of war drama, but they can be hard to get through at times. So much that some of the battle scenes had to be toned down in order to avoid an NC-17 rating. Still, this is a very intense, emotionally compelling, if a little cheesy, film about the life of William Wallace, here played by Mel Gibson, who also directed the movie. And the performances are fantastic, with the big standout being Angus MacFadyen as Robert the Bruce, who actually got his own kinda sorta spin-off film earlier this year with MacFadyen returning, which I heard wasn't all that good. Oh well. Still, Braveheart's an epic, gripping drama, and one that is certainly worth your time. Number 8. Patton. General George S. Patton is a fairly controversial individual. His hardened persona, with vulgarity-ridden speeches and emphasis on being aggressive, didn't necessarily make him the most compassionate individual around, but they managed to successfully make a movie about him, an excellent one at that, mainly thanks to the outstanding performance by George C. Scott as the general. He gives a no-holds-barred performance, leaning in hard to Patton's domineering personality, and really playing up the larger-than-life persona he was known for. The film doesn't try to frame him as some sort of misunderstood figure, not making him the easiest film protagonist to get behind, but Scott is absolutely mesmerizing here. But besides his performance, the film is shot excellently, and the score is fantastic. And despite being nearly 3 hours, it never once feels boring. The famous opening scene of Patton giving a speech to his troops is still one of the best moments in movie history. Riveting from beginning to end, this one remains a classic. Number 7. The Elephant Man. David Lynch is known for having one of the strangest filmographies, but he did have a few commercial efforts to his name. And whenever he did venture into mainstream territory, he did a wonderful job. And this is the finest example of that. Based on the life of Joseph Merrick, here known as John Merrick, a man with extreme deformities that got him the cruel nickname that this movie's named after, this focuses on his friendship with a man named Frederick Treves, here played by Anthony Hopkins, after Treves rescues him from a demoralizing freak show. Merrick is masterfully played by John Hurt, who gives his absolute best performance here. And the direction by David Lynch is stunning, showing that he's still a very capable director without falling back on his usual strange imagery. It's a very sentimental film, with friendship being a big theme at its heart. And if there's one thing it nails perfectly, it's that it shows how just a little bit of kindness can really go a long way. Number 6. Ed Wood. Tim Burton is famously known for his focus on strange subject matter, and despite being a biopic, he still leans into that quirkiness heavily, honing in on the eccentricities of the cult filmmaker, here played by Johnny Depp. We get a closer look at some of the bizarre folks that Wood associated himself with and put in his movies, as well as an inside look at his really unusual approach to filmmaking. And it was all played for some great laughs, though the more compassionate side of Wood was also seen, and he wasn't just the butt of one big joke. The film's biggest focus was Wood's relationship with his idol, Bela Lugosi, here played by Martin Landau, who gives easily the best performance in this film, showcasing heartbreakingly how waning stardom took its toll on the once popular actor. At the heart of the film, despite being about a man who was ridiculed his entire life, it shows that no matter what, a dream is certainly worth following. Number 5. 12 Years a Slave. The film focuses on Solomon Northup, here played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, who was kidnapped and sold into slavery, being subjected to years of extreme cruelty, mainly by a man named Edwin Epps, played by Michael Fassbender. This is a heartbreaking film with a lot of scenes that will just make you feel uncomfortable, to say the very least. But it never goes for sensationalism or exploitation, showing the daunting toll these years in captivity took on Northup. It's a beautifully filmed movie, with a chilling score by the great Hans Zimmer that will stay with you long after the movie's over. And it's powerfully acted. Chiwetel Ejiofor gives a career-best performance, while Michael Fassbender's sadistic performance shows us a heartless man who we end up despising with every fiber of our being. Though one of the biggest standouts is Lupita Nyong'o, in her feature-length debut, giving a powerful performance that led her to winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. It's a tragic yet powerful story, and truly one of the best films of the decade. Number 4. The Sound of Music. I recently spoke about this movie in my top 10 best musicals of all time, and if you haven't seen that, definitely go check it out. So I'll try to keep this a bit short. While often associated strictly with musicals, this is actually a true story, with the original stage musical being based on Maria von Trapp's own memoirs. This is a wonderful movie with a ton of catchy songs that have gone on to become classics, including the title song, My Favorite Things, and So Long Farewell. Julie Andrews gives one of her best performances as Maria von Trapp, and the film is gorgeously shot with breathtaking visuals and beautiful scenery accompanying many of the songs, creating some truly memorable movie moments. But while it does have a ton of catchy songs, it's also a movie about survival, with the Von Trapp family coming together as their homeland is overtaken by the Nazis. It's an incredibly moving film, and it remains both a classic musical and a classic biographical film. Number 3. Raging Bull. I recently spoke about this movie as well in my top 10 best sports movies video, so go check that out as well. But yeah, this movie is excellent. Martin Scorsese has a lot of films that are worthy of being called classics, though this one always makes the top 3, if not the top of the list. It's a brutal film showcasing the life of boxer Jake LaMotta, here played by Robert De Niro, and the boxing scenes are absolutely grisly at times, with Scorsese's direction being raw and unfiltered, with a look at how being involved in that sport can truly take its toll on an individual. Paul Schrader's screenplay is excellent, with plenty of quotable moments brought to life by De Niro, Kathy Moriarty, and Joe Pesci, the latter two also doing fantastic jobs. A classic sports film as it is a biographical film, this movie still packs a punch every time I watch it. Number 2. Goodfellas. Back-to-back Scorsese. How about that? Like I said, Scorsese has multiple films worthy of being called classics, and this one is my favorite. Earlier I said not all biographical films focus on particularly great people, and here's one of those examples. Because pretty much everyone here is a terrible person. I mean, it's an inside look at a major crime family, what do you expect? But a movie like Goodfellas differs from other films where protagonists are unlikable, in that it gives us an in-depth look at the way they see things. So while we don't condone anything they do in this movie, we can at least understand them. And that's conveyed perfectly through the narration by protagonist Henry Hill, played by Ray Liotta. This is peak Scorsese right here. The dialogue is even more razor sharp than Raging Bull. It's got a memorable soundtrack full of classic songs, and there's a great visual aesthetic, with plenty of the scenes being classic images in movie history. Plus, you once again have great performances from Scorsese regulars De Niro and Pesci, the latter of whom giving his absolute career best performance here. This runs at about 2.5 hours, and you almost never feel that runtime, making its rewatch value endless. And at number 1, Schindler's List. Steven Spielberg is commonly associated with big-budget blockbusters like Jaws, Indiana Jones, and Jurassic Park. But he's also shown a completely different side of him showcasing human drama plenty of times, and here's one of the finest examples. Often considered one of the greatest films of all time, for those who aren't aware, this stars Liam Neeson as Oskar Schindler, a member of the Nazi Party who, after being profoundly affected by what he saw at the German concentration camps, makes it his mission to save as many Jewish refugees as he can from the Holocaust by employing them in his factories. It's a deeply moving film and not easy to get through, with some images being absolutely horrifying to say the least. But Spielberg masterfully handles the grim subject matter. He never goes for sensationalism, managing to bring out human drama through terrifying moments seen through the perspective of Schindler. Liam Neeson is at his absolute best here, as are Ben Kingsley as Schindler's assistant, and Ralph Fiennes as the sadistic lieutenant who Schindler has to frequently deal with. It's a heartbreaking film, but one of the finest pieces of cinema to ever hit the big screen, worthy of being called a timeless classic, as well as my number 1 choice for best biographical film. And that's my list. Like I said, there are a ton of other great movies I wish I could have gotten to. At some point I'll look at more of them in depth. But I'm still looking forward to see which popular figures get covered next for a film. The main thing lately seems to be covering famous musicians, with Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man being very successful. And we have an Aretha Franklin movie, Respect, coming out later this year. If nothing else gets delayed, that is. So I'll be looking forward to talking with you more about these films and whatever else comes next. So what's one of your favorite biographical films, and what's one of your least favorite biographical films? Was it anything I listed here? Was it something I left off? And do you agree with this list at all? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll catch you next time.